So as a first point of who is in the room or might be working with you as part of the Practicum team, there are quite a few of us that we consider part of the Practicum team. The first on your screen is Katie Cobb. Katie is a Practicum coordinator. Michelle Madison is also a Practicum coordinator, and Kelly Leaf is a Practicum coordinator. You will see that Ashley Agee is a Practicum coordinator, but differentiates from the other three by being the Practicum coordinator for only Title IV-E child welfare students. Then you will see Rosetta. Rosetta is the Practicum program coordinator. Myself, I am the director of Practicum education. There's Rosetta waving at you. And above the Practicum team, we have Dr. Suzanne Shatila, who is the MSW program director, and Dr. Joan Blakey, who is the director of the School of Social Work. It is our pleasure to have you be a part of Practicum with us. What you should expect from this evening is that I will be going over a review of practical policies that are relevant for this juncture of participating in the Practicum process, as well as to provide you with information to create a path to attaining and securing a placement for the next year. A technical difficulty on my end here. 1 second, we'll get that fixed. Here we go. All right. Let's talk for a brief moment about the MSW program, and in particular, the place that Practicum holds within this degree. Our accrediting agent is the Council for Social Work Education. They determine who can be accredited, and it is really important for a social work program to hold accreditation from our CSWE body. They accredit an organization, a school, for a 7-year period, and we are about 1.5 years into our current 7-year period. And one of the things that the Council on Social Work Education states is that Practicum is the signature pedagogy of the MSW degree. Basically, what this means is that the greatest element of learning in the MSW program is going to happen in the process of Practicum. Now, we're all a little bit biased about that, but I will tell you that most people, when they complete their MSW program and 1 year or 2 or 10 years have passed, the thing that people remember most about their MSW program is Practicum. They remember their relationship, they remember the places that they did their interning, and they remember how it felt to be in these environments. And so we're pretty biased about this whole signature pedagogy thing, but I also acknowledge that in Peters Hall, we have recently been elevated to the front office suite of the building. And so when you come to Peters Hall, you will find the Practicum team in the suite right to the left of the entrance. And there's a large space there that you are welcome to come in there. There's some tables and chairs and some quiet space there. But all of the Practicum team, with the exclusion of Ashley, who again is working with only the child welfare people, we are all co-located in offices off of that suite area. So come and see us. Thinking about the MSW program, there's a few terms that I think I want to make sure that you understand. One is the term foundation. And foundation is a set of curriculum that adds up to 19 credits. And it is the equivalent of the BSW program's social work education courses. And so as a full program MSW student, that means that you don't have a bachelor's degree in social work. And so in the master's program, you have to attain these 19 credits before you move on to the specialization curriculum. So I want to talk about these 19 credits, because if you are a first year student doing a full program and participating in Practicum, you will see that at the center of this screen, there is SW 8010. This is the course identifier for Practicum. It is 6 credits. It includes a seminar, and the seminar is led by your faculty liaison or your Practicum coordinator. We use those words interchangeably. When students are thinking about registering for Practicum, typically what we see is that students will take 3 credits in the fall and 3 credits in the spring. Those 6 credits they don't change. You can play with them a little bit if you wanted to do 4 and 2 or 5 and 1. All of that is possible. You just need to have 6 credits over the course of the year, the fall, spring semesters. I will say that you as a student will not ever register yourself for Practicum. Our student register advisors will always be registering our students for Practicum. And so if ever you intend to do something other than 3 and 3 credits, you will need to let me and Rosetta know that, so that we can inform the advisors that that is your intent and that I have approved that. So as we think about Practicum, and Practicum can start first thing fall semester. Also in fall semester, you will see that you are going to take courses such as the history and policy of social welfare. That's 5051. You will take a human behavior in the social environment. We refer to that as HIPSE. You will take a research methods course. And then there are 3 other methods courses: 8151, 8152, and 8153. These 3 methods courses are not taken necessarily in order. 8151 and 8153 happen in the fall semester, and 8152 happens in the spring semester with your second 3 credits of practicum. So all of the credits for foundation will happen while you are taking your foundation placement, and they are all relevant and support the work that you will do in your internship as a practicum student, as a foundation practicum student. The next slide is relevant for anyone who is coming in as an advanced standing student, or for foundation level students to understand what else am I going to begin to take as classes in my second semester of my first year as a full program student. Probably the most important of these is this class here. It says your primary specialization anchor up there in the top right corner. We currently have 4 specializations. They include clinical mental health, families and children, community practice, and health, disability, and aging. You will choose one of those 4 to be your primary specialization, and we use the term anchor and boost. When we were designing these classes, those names got assigned and they've stuck. The idea of the anchor is that it is a lot of theory and kind of the basics of the specialization that you need to know in order to progress in that specialization. So anchoring you to that information is the first of the courses. It is followed by a boost or a skills class that is about enhancing and supporting the theories that you have had in the first anchor course. So you're going to have an anchor and a boost in your specialization, and you will need to take 2 specialization elective courses. Each of them are worth 3 credits. You will have choice on which electives you choose to take. Currently in clinical mental health, there are 4 different choices. In each of the other 3 specializations, you will be able to choose from 3 choices which you would prefer to be in. If you follow clockwise around this chart, you will see that there is the expectation that you have a secondary specialization anchor. So if you imagine that you had been a student who was in clinical mental health as your primary specialization anchor, you would then need to choose one of the other 3 specialization courses and take the anchor in that sequence. It's all about getting cross-trained, and we know and recognize that students don't tend to stay in one position or engage in one type of social work throughout their career. And so cross-training you in 2 specializations is really important. You'll see the next is 5 credits. There isn't a 5 credit class, except unless you want to take, there is an Ojibwe language class that you could choose to take. It is 5 credits, but most courses at the University of Minnesota are not 5 credits in, they're typically 1, 2, or 3 credits per class. And you can choose any course that you would like to take, seek approval if it's not already been approved as an authorized elective course, and use that course to satisfy one of your 5 credits. If you want to take another specialization anchor course you've taken 2 of them and you want to take a 3rd one or a 4th one, you are welcome to do that. You can take any course that you haven't already taken for one of these circles on the chart. There's an advanced evaluation course. There are 2 of them actually. One is a program evaluation that is very specific to students who are in the community practice curriculum. And then there is a practice evaluation course that the students in the 3 other specialization areas take. And currently this course is taught concurrent with your 80-20 or 80-30 practicum placement. Finally, there are 2 classes that are required for all students. One is the advanced policy course, and the other is the diversity, difference, and privilege course. Typically, if you are a first-year student, you are going to take the foundation courses in the fall, and in the spring, you're going to finish your foundation courses. You're going to take your primary specialization anchor course. You're going to take diversity, difference, and privilege, and you're going to take the advanced policy course and knock out all of the courses that are at the top part of this sphere. Any questions about these courses? If you do have questions along the way, please feel free to raise your hand. You may also pop a question into the chat and we will monitor that as well and try to address that without you feeling like you're interjecting. At the center of this specialization curriculum, you will see that it says SW 80-20 and SW 80-30. Both of these will land you in a specialization practicum. Again, the practicum is 6 credits and you can split it 3 and 3 over the fall and spring or any other combination, so long as you have at least 1 credit in each semester and that you accumulate 6 credits in total. Both the foundation and specialization practicum classes have a seminar, and the seminars will be led again by your practicum liaison. And I'm going to move us on. So, thinking about, oh, Rosetta's got a question. I love it. Let's hear from Rosetta.
I'm reading a question from the chat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The question is, do those general elective courses have to reside in the School of Social Work?
They do not. There are some classes that students take that are pre-approved, and you will get that information at one of the registration orientation meetings. But you can always request that you are interested in a particular area and or how it will enhance your practicum knowledge or your career, and choose to ask if that can be approved for you to take as one of your elective courses. Again, these 5 credits are up to you to individualize what you want to learn about while you're at the university. I will say that 5 is the minimum. If you choose to do more than 5, that is your prerogative. You are open to do that and choose to take additional courses. We answer that? Rosetta, you still got your hand up? You all set? All right,
Oh,
so go ahead.
no, all set.
Okay, thank you. So the role of your faculty or practicum liaison is really important. This is somebody who you're going to build a relationship with. Uh, they may or may not be your academic advisor. They may or may not become your academic advisor. You're going to find that you're going to spend a lot of time with your practicum liaison. This is somebody who's going to talk with you a lot about what you want to do in your future as a social worker. And you can talk to them about anything. Most of them have many years. I would say all of them have been supervisors within the field of their choice within social work. And each of them have been identified as a leader and a knowledgeable being on different types of social work. All of them are independently licensed by the state of Minnesota as social workers. And I'm pretty proud of them. It's a really strong team. I will say that this person is not only going to be your seminar faculty, but they are the person that is holding you accountable for completing all of the documentation of this course. They are the person who will grade you during practicum, and they were going to work with you and your supervisors if there's any conflict, problems, things to negotiate, joys to celebrate. They are going to be a part of that. So you should plan to invest some time in this relationship, get to know that person, let them get to know you. And one of the things that I want you to know is that we strive to ensure that whomever is your practicum liaison in your first foundation internship, they will also be your person, your second specialization practicum as well. One of the things that I want to identify on this slide that I think is really important is to talk about dual relationships. Our code of ethics as social workers really challenges us to think about minimizing dual relationships and to find ways where we are not in conflict, nor do we put other people in a position to where you might have more than one relationship with the client or with somebody that you're providing services. And so the duality of we work with you as the students, but we are also responsible to the organizations in which you will be placed and to the supervisors of those programs. And most of us have pretty decent long-term relationships with the community providers within the Twin Cities. It is an incredibly small community, and we are interested in sustaining those relationships as best we can. But I also want you to know that we are committed to you in those relationships and helping to facilitate the tension that might be inevitable, the conflict that does happen, and to work through that to resolution, whatever that might look like. But there are times when we will be communicating with you and with the practicum folks, because it's our responsibility to follow up with them and ensure that they're doing their job, ensuring that you're doing your job, and all of the things in between that. Rosetta.
I'm kind of going back. You mentioned this earlier, but it came up in the chat. So you mentioned to the students that they cannot register themselves for the the practicum. They don't register themselves. And the question was asked, so does that mean they do not register through uh, the schedule builder? And I said I would bring that back to you because I'm not familiar with schedule builder.
Sure, absolutely. So there's actually a hold or a feature within the registration system that will prevent you from adding SW 8010, 8020, or 8030 to your registration. And the reasons for that are that we don't know at the time of registration where you are going to be in a placement. And you don't know that yet. We don't know that yet. And we don't know which day seminar is going to fit best into your schedule. So currently we have seminars on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, and they're at different times throughout the week. And depending upon what works best for your schedule, you will have an opportunity to give us some feedback regarding which day, which seminar you would prefer to be in. And then we do a puzzle of ensuring that students ideally get their first choice on what day they would like to be in seminar. But we also have to manage these small groups to ensure that only one student from each agency is in a small group. So if you can imagine that there is an agency where there are maybe 5 students will get placed at the same agency or organization. Maybe they all are going to be at Washburn Center for Children, and we will want all 5 of those people to be in 5 different seminar groups. And we have multiple groups each day that we have seminar. And so we do that for the reason that we want you to be able to share what is going on at your seminar in consultation with your peers and your facilitators. However, sometimes students have very different experiences than their peers at the same organization. And this way, it allows students to have their own space where they can be in consultation about their own placement and not have to manage the dynamics of confidentiality, of people having a different experience or being uncomfortable with the feedback that gets shared. It allows students to have more of their own space. And so again, going back to what do you do with this idea of registering or not? You will have ample opportunity to tell us what you want to do regarding registration and communicate that with Rosetta. She will send you multiple emails that propose when the seminars are, and for you to write her and say, this would be my preference. It is really important that when you receive that email, that you respond to it as quickly as possible. It will become a first serve, first response, first choice. Rosetta.
Yes, Heidi is correct. You will, when you receive your notification after we match in round one, it will have a link for you to go and fill out a form and you submit your first choice and a second choice. I have to have two choices because there are times you won't get the first choice. I need to know what that second choice will be. And again, if you fill out the form is going to timestamp your submission. And like she said, I do it a lot based on the first come, first serve. So the sooner you respond to it, the likelihood is that you're going to get your first choice.
Thank you. All right, I am going to move forward and talk a little bit more specifically about practicum. One of the things that I want you to think about is that practicum is meant to be the laboratory where you can apply your knowledge. It's thinking about utilizing and developing skills based on the information that you are learning in the classroom and being able to practice. We expect mistakes will happen in the laboratory, in the practicum space. You will hear my team and I ask you questions like, have you had an opportunity to make a mistake yet? And how did you manage that? What kind of feedback did you get? What did you learn from that situation? We expect that to happen. We feel that that's a great way for you to learn. Sometimes mistakes are small, sometimes mistakes are very large. We understand that that happens. Practicum is also where you get tested. It is an opportunity for you to demonstrate that you are building an effective practice. It is a place where we expect that you will build what we refer to as competence. And I'm going to talk more about the word competence in just a little bit. Again, I want to say this is the signature pedagogy. Practicum is a really big deal in your MSW program. Here's this word competence. In practicum, we expect that you are going to be gaining skills, gaining knowledge, and demonstrating competence. I'm going to go back to earlier, I talked about the Council for Social Work Education. If you were a BSW student, you know this language. There are 9 competencies, 9 statements that the Council for Social Work Education has said the entirety of an MSW degree or a BSW degree is based on building stage development skills to meet these 9 competencies. You are going to learn these. We talk about competencies in the classes that you take. We talk about competencies in the practicum setting. You will write goals for yourself at your practicum that will help you to build competence in these 9 areas. Now, when you think about the word competent, the other side of that looks like incompetent. And we are not in any way saying that students are incompetent by talking about competency. We are simply stating that we expect you to demonstrate an appropriate level of competence, knowledge, skills, values, and the 4th is cognitive and affective processing in regards to the work that you engage in. Cognitive and affective processing means that you have to be vulnerable, that you have to participate in the sharing of how are you thinking, that's the cognitive, and how are you feeling, the affective, regarding the work that you are doing, the people you are interacting with, and the engagement of being a helper or a social worker in these settings. Those 4 things are going to be tested and practiced throughout your MSW career, with a predominance of the evaluation of that occurring while you are in practicum. Finally, just so that you're paying attention to this, in addition to doing the learning at your organization, it is also a course that we refer to as seminar, where there are assignments and responsibilities, requirements that you need to engage in independently and with your peers in order to fulfill the course requirements. So let's talk about your practicum. You're going to identify a practicum soon. And we want you to know that while you're looking for a practicum, you understand what the requirements of doing that will be. The first is, how long do you need to be there? Well, there's a few elements that determine that the practicum is ready to be over. One is that you have reached a minimum number of hours at your placement setting. If you are a foundation student, that number is 420 hours. If you are a specialization student, the number is 600. Please remember that that is a minimum threshold, and most students do more than that for whatever the reason is, that they love it and they just keep wanting to be there. Maybe it is that they haven't reached full competence and the demonstration of that yet. And other times it's simply because they've made a commitment to stay at the practicum until a particular date. So, for example, we require that students stay in their practicum until after the last day of seminar. That'll be a date in April. If you are at a placement such as an elementary school where you're working with children, you probably aren't going to be in a position to walk away from the school in April, knowing that the school doesn't end until the first week of June. And so if you want to do a placement at a school, you will probably need to commit to stay for the entirety of the school year, which could require you to do more than the minimum number of hours at your practicum site. We want you to monitor this. We are not asking you to do excessive labor on your end. We're simply saying we want you to be planful about how many hours you're putting in and be sure to reach your minimum. While you're in your practicum, you're going to be supervised by someone that we call a practicum instructor. This is an individual who holds an MSW degree, has an active Minnesota social work license from the Board of Social Work. It is not only active, but it is in good standing. And that person has at least 2 years of post MSW experience working in their area of practice so that they can help you to learn that role. In some situations, some organizations, there is a second person. It might be the person who gives you day-to-day tasks to do. It might be your primary person that you shadow and spend most of your day with. They might be a psychologist or licensed in a different discipline than social work. And we can call that person your task supervisor, but we cannot call them a practicum instructor because our accrediting body says that MSW students need to be supervised by an MSW holding individual. So we refer to that person as a task supervisor. They have all kinds of active role within all of your documentation and assignments and visits with me, visits with my team, and your day-to-day duties. Not everybody has a task supervisor. Sometimes all you need is a practicum instructor. In some settings, the organization has no MSW individual on staff. We've determined that it's still a wonderful place for learning and that social work is happening there. In those situations, either the organization or our team will identify someone to be the practicum instructor. They will be an off-site, not an employee of the organization, and they will provide you with the supervision similar to an organizational person who's on-site with you. Finally, in addition to being on-site, again, you will have seminar taught by your practicum liaison or faculty person, and in all of the 80-10 and 80-30 seminars, you will have a community practitioner as a secondary or co-facilitator of your seminar. The rationale behind that is that it is really beneficial to have a second opinion of a seasoned practitioner in the space, because students are talking about learning and making mistakes and being challenged by the process. And sometimes it's great to have two additional heads in the room, two different people that can coach you and coach the group through the process of consultation. So we have hired for every seminar section, 80-10 and 80-30, a community practitioner to be present in the classroom with your faculty person. Specifically, thinking about practicum placements, if you are a full program student, you are going to complete 2 practicums. You'll do a foundation placement and you will do a specialization placement. It is really important that you follow that. If you are a foundation level student, you do a foundation placement. And if you are a specialization level student, you do a specialization level placement. All of our placements are vetted. They are all in agreement with our school that they know what a foundation placement is expected to provide you, and a specialization placement is expected to train you and teach you. If you are an advanced standing student coming in, you will do 1 placement. It will be a specialization level placement. Again, the numbers on there are that advanced standing is an 80-30 specialization placement. When you're thinking about identifying a practicum site, one of the things that will come up during your interviews and searches is organizations are going to say, when can you begin? When does the semester start? How and when can you come here for training? It's important for you to know that you are covered under liability insurance. That's malpractice insurance. It is insurance to ensure that if you make an egregious mistake or someone were to think that you made an egregious mistake, you would have the support of the university and the university's liability insurance to support you if that was needed. It is important for you to know that the liability insurance begins on the first day of the fall semester. That is always going to be the day after Labor Day. This year, that's September 3rd. So you might say to an organization that you're interviewing with, I'm able to begin on September 3rd. They might be interested in you coming earlier. It is possible for you to go earlier, only to participate in orientation and training that does not include you being anywhere near or in observation of a client. So some students will start looking at orientation and training a couple weeks before Labor Day. Again, very appropriate for you to do if that is what the organization asks of you. Additionally, placements typically run through April or mid-May. Again, thinking about the school placements, sometimes students are still there in June. It is also possible that depending upon how you manage your winter breaks and spring breaks, you might need to add more time to your placement at the end because you fell behind in your accumulation of hours. Again, remember that you have to hit that minimum number of hours. Typically, foundation students put in between 14, 15, maybe 16 hours. For sure, students do not ever fall below 12 hours each week that they are in placement. Ideally, 14 is going to very comfortably allow you to complete your placement by the end of April, beginning of May. Specialization placements, remember that you have to do 600 hours. It will require you to do between 18 and 20 hours a week in order to complete that placement by mid-May. There are Mondays and Tuesdays reserved in our calendar where there are not classes within the School of Social Work for you to take Monday or Tuesday during business hours. We do offer Monday and Tuesday night classes, but business hours are left without courses so that students can engage in their internship. Wednesday and Thursday morning classes typically are also flexible, meaning that Wednesday and Thursday morning classes, if you are in a placement where you are required to do your internship Wednesday or Thursday morning, a class that is offered at that time is typically offered twice and at least one other time besides Wednesday or Thursday morning. So if your practicum placement were to ask you to be at your site for 8 hours on Monday, 8 hours on Tuesday, we're up to 16, and maybe they want you to come in on Wednesday morning for 4 hours. That would be normative and appropriate and something that you could do as a full-time student. I want to acknowledge that that's a lot. And we want you to think about how are you going to organize yourself so that you can fully participate in the practicum process. It requires you to manage thinking about your work responsibilities, your home responsibilities, your family responsibilities, talking with your support system about that you are committing to an intensive graduate program. There are ways that we can help with some management of responsibilities. However, it is really important that you are thoughtful about this process as you begin it. Here, I want to say that many people choose to not be employed full-time while they are in graduate school. There are some students who cannot give up full-time employment for a multitude of reasons. If you are thinking about attaining a placement that has some element of financial award attached to it, please note that that will not be the same as working full-time. So plan for this accordingly and know that we are very interested in supporting you, ensuring that you have the best plan moving forward. Nastali, do you have a question? I see you on my screen. Rosetta.
Hey, I think I just
Hi.
accidentally hit mute.
Okay, no problem. I'm glad you're here. Rosetta, do you have something you'd like to add?
Yes, in the chat, there is a question says, is it typical advisable for a new MSW student to be employed as a GSI or GSR during the first fall semester while holding normal coursework and practicum? And more than one person wants to know this.
Sure. I'm not sure what the acronym stand for, but I'm going to take a stab at that. Is a graduate research assistant or a graduate teaching assistant or simply a teaching assistant. Is it appropriate for you to do that? To do a placement and be a full-time student? Many people do it. I will say that if you have not heard me talk about graduate assistantships or research assistantships in the past or ever, the unique element of securing one of those positions on campus is that as a graduate student, if you secure a research assistantship or teaching assistantship, and you engage in a 10 hours a week role, you are paid for the 10 hours that you work, and 1/2 of your tuition is paid for you as a benefit. If you are doing 20 hours a week in one of these roles, your tuition is paid in full. I will say that there are probably some small caveats to that, such as student fees. I don't know, I think they can add on all kinds of things, but in general, the tuition is paid in full if you are working 20 hours as a graduate assistant, research assistant, teaching assistant. These are really coveted positions by graduate students, and it is never too early to start watching and applying to take one of those positions if they become available. It is a huge incentive to not have student debt when you complete your graduate program. So to answer the question, is it advisable that you have a part-time job as a graduate assistant or a full-time student and do an internship? You're going to have to put it on your calendar and you're going to have to play it out and see, is it possible for you? Some students do it. Some people have very flexible graduate assistantships or internships. Other people struggle to make all of that happen. Any other question about that?
I have a quick question about paid internships. So understand it's a social justice issue for students to get paid internships. Is there any possibility for the school to start moving towards formally advocating for that? With some of the national organizations like Paid for Placement, which is a national student organization that is kind of urging action on that issue. Is that something that the school might be willing to get behind in terms of lobbying for that to happen in the state of Minnesota?
Matt, I've been involved with that organization for years already. And I'm going to talk more about placements and paid placements, stipends, scholarships, etc. in just a bit. So let's see if I answer some of what you're wondering about in a future slide.
Great, thank you so much.
Sure thing. All right, I want to mention summer block placements only so that you know that they exist. A summer block placement happens over the summer semester. It typically, the starting date is a little bit flexible. The summer semester begins the Tuesday after Memorial Day. That is late in the month of May. Because of the number of hours that a student is required to do during the summer semester, the university has granted our program the ability to start effective May 1st with your liability insurance for a summer placement. So typically students start May 1st and it runs until mid to late August. This is what we call a block placement, and whether you are a foundation student or a specialization student, it is a full-time 35 to 40 hours per week commitment to be at the organization. If you are interested in doing a summer block placement, know that there will be an orientation training that will happen end of January, beginning of February. We will put out an email to all students in late November, asking you to start thinking about whether or not you're going to participate in a summer block placement and to let us know. And if right now it is your intent to do a summer placement, please know that you do not need to sit in this training in order to learn about a summer placement. We will participate in doing that in another session. I want to think about how you might have additional policy questions regarding to Practicum. If you do, know that there is a Practicum manual. It is really important that you know that the current Practicum manual covers the 23-24 school year. There will be a new manual ready on the 1st of July. You will get a copy of that in print form, and it is always updated in real time if changes are required. As you think about policies, the 23-24 version is available right now, and most all policies that are there will give you a good indicator of what is likely to be there next year. There are some minor things that are in the process of being changed, but I will talk further today about things that you will need to reference the current manual if you want to kind of create your own direction with Practicum. You might wonder why you need to know what's in the Practicum. Well, again, we have tried to think of as many possibilities of things that could happen, contingency plans, etc., and written policies and procedures to address them. You're responsible for what's in the manual, and we are responsible for what's in the manual. And it's something that you can rely on as being your information on how the process works. Just as the time limit of tonight is, I'm not going to address everything that's in that manual. You will find in the manual things about safety, things about social media usage, criminal background checks, procedures with dealing with problems that might come up at Practicum. And I identify this one because it's super important. If you are wondering, what would happen if I need to miss the first day of class? That would be like the first day of any of your classes within the university. I want you to know that the University of Minnesota has a really unique attendance policy specific to the first day of class. There is no ability to skip the first day of class and hold your spot in that class. If you are not present on the first day of class, your instructor will notify the university, and likely you will be dropped from that class. And if there is a waiting list and someone else is waiting to get into that section that you are in, they will get your seat. So please plan accordingly to be present on the first day of all of your classes.
Heidi, just a quick question about that.
Yeah.
Just to make sure. So university policy on like illness and sick leave and stuff. I mean, things do happen. You know, people do get sick and simply aren't able to be at a place. Are there exceptions, or is that a flat out, no exceptions policy? I'm just asking because I would hate for a student in the future to, maybe they have to stay at home because their kid is really sick and they're a single parent and their kid is running a fever, or maybe they test positive for COVID and they don't want to be in the classroom and risk spreading it. I assume there are some exceptions for that case. Is that the case, or is this a no exceptions policy?
If I am the instructor, I can speak from experience that I have an element of consideration for what those factors are. And I believe that it is on a case-by-case basis. And so please contact your instructor if you have to be not present. I cannot guarantee that it is something that will hold your spot, whether it is excused or unexcused absence. This is a university policy that says you need to be there in order to hold your seat. There are reasons that you can be excused from class. I do not think that they apply to this policy as an override.
Okay, I mean, just to make sure, because I'm looking at the policy on the university website, And
Sweet.
it says explicitly students can't be penalized for absence due to unavoidable or legitimate circumstances. And that includes illness, medical conditions related to pregnancy, jury duty, military service. I mean, there's a lot of things that theoretically could
There
happen.
are.
Yeah, there are,
I would just
and
make sure
I
that
agree
that's
with you. Yeah, I agree with you as well. I think that might be what caused a bit of confusion because that is a policy that Heidi's referring to, and that is something that is applied throughout the course. Any course you take, that rule applies. But what she's talking about is an independent, separate one, and that's strictly related to the first day. And so I honestly can say I don't know that what you're reading will override that either, because what you are talking about is through the course of a class, whereas this is strictly for the first day. Because I remember being in school. One of the reasons was sometimes you have students, maybe not in our situation, but you have students, especially like in undergrad, who are on waiting lists to get in a class. And so that's why they have that policy. Like if you can't show up for the first day to show that you want this class, we're going to drop you and we're going to give it to somebody on the waiting list. So I don't think when they made the rule, it was with these intentions at the time, because again, this is probably made way before stuff like COVID and stuff came about. But yeah, I agree with Heidi. We probably have to look into that, or you should look into that a little bit more, because I don't think what you're reading will override that first one.
I think it's something for us to affirm. And
Yeah,
we can provide additional information
information.
to clarify that. But for the most part, we really want to stress that you need to be in class on the first day of each of your classes in order to hold your spot. Let's talk about setting up interviews. Right now, as you think about, you have a list of agencies that you might be looking at to say, wow, I'm really interested in this. You might be excited to begin to make contact with those organizations. We want you to know that the first day that you can contact the agency by emailing them, sending your resume and your cover letter is on April 3rd and not before. It is really important that you do not make contact with organizations before April 3rd. I will tell you that when the list came out, multiple agencies reached out to Rosetta and told us that some of our students reached out, and we have trained our agency partners to report that to us so that there is no impropriety of establishing a relationship between an organization and a student before this date. You can schedule to hold an interview. Schedule it on April 3rd, but the first day that you can actually complete an interview is April 4th. No interviews will happen prior to April 4th, and the first round of interviewing needs to be completed by May 3rd. I'm going to talk more about that in just a second. If you are starting to feel a little bit anxious about what's coming ahead, please note that the Practicum team is here to support you in this process, that we are here to help you move through this process effectively. And as long as you stay in contact with us, we will provide you support all the way through to finding and securing a placement. So I'm going to transition now into what are the steps in order to secure a practicum placement for the 24-25 school year. Step 1, you're here. And we have checked this box because you are participating and learning the expectations of what you need to do. Step 2, we want you to consult the agency availability list. Now, this list is updated regularly. This list is something that is a living document, and if you have printed it, please note that on a true and real regular basis, organizations will be added and removed or closed from the list as they communicate with us. So what I'm going to do is I am going to stop sharing for just a minute, and I am going to open this agency availability list. And now I am going to, yeah,
Heidi, while you're opening that, can I ask a question that was in the chat a while ago and I never got a chance to read it to you?
sure.
Okay, while you're pulling that up, scroll and find it. I'm so sorry. Here it is. It says, can you apply and begin an assistantship before you start your first year?
That's a really good question. I think that you can secure an assistantship. Sometimes the opportunity becomes available in the summer before your first semester, and you can become engaged in a role like that. If you are the candidate that one of the researcher wants to have you work with them, they will find a way to support you in securing that position, and you can then hold that position into the school year. I see Mariah has their hand up.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you. So you mentioned that agencies would be pulled or closed from the list. Are you referring to like if like we start the process and they have they filled all their positions and they're pulled, or
No,
like they just have decided not to be taking interns anymore? Like I'm just thinking of how active this list is going to be and how much to pay attention
sure.
to it.
Great question, Mariah. An agency might lose funding for, an agency might close. An agency might learn that their funding resources are going to not be renewed in the next year. Agency supervisors might decide to leave a position or an organization and go do something else, and there isn't someone else that can supervise an intern in the way that they had previously thought that they could. And so there's really many reasons why an organization might contact us and say, we've decided we can't provide an opportunity for a student at this time. What I'm going to do, I think I've answered that question, but I'm going to add to it in just a little bit. I'm going to share my screen once more, and what I want you to see here is this is in real time the 24-25 agency availability list. And probably you have spent some time looking at this already. And if this is a brand new document, first time you're seeing it, know that you can find a link to this on the homepage of IPT. When you open this document, it's going to open way down here at the bottom. You'll see that there are different tabs. The first one that it's preset to is the foundation list, followed by the 4 specializations. So clinical mental health, community practice, family and children, and health, disability, and aging. If you are engaged in a specialization placement, you have to do a placement that has been approved for your primary specialization selection. And so if you are a clinical mental health student, you would want to open this page in order to see who are and where are the clinical mental health organizations. Also on here, there is a list of 4E foundation placements, and then you will see 4E specialization placements. Again, these are specific to students who have been approved to be a 4E scholar in either their foundation or specialization level practicum. I'm going to go back to the foundation list, and as I scroll to the right, you'll see that it starts with the agency list. Here you'll see where it says that this was updated on 3/25. The Center for Victims of Torture updated their information with us. And really what they did was that they changed who was going to be their agency contact, the person that needs to get notified if you're interested in securing a placement with them. You'll see that the Collaborative for Resilient Kids and Families in Minnesota was added on 3/19. And the difference between added on 3/19 and new on 3/19, new is an indicator that this is a new organization for us. It means that they may or may not have had a student at that location previously. And added as a reference is that they have not, prior to that day, told us that they will be participating in the practicum placement for the next year. So the list was made with a deadline from when we asked them to indicate, are you able to provide a placement for the students? And then after that deadline, we've been making contact with the organizations to say, are you sure you're not going to offer a placement? Because typically you offer placements. And then they give us some kind of story about, oh, they forgot, or they didn't see that email, or they missed it, whatever the reason. But you will see in red that an organization has been added, that they are new, that it is updated, or that it is closed. And so this is where the real-time list is. If we were to look at, let's look at the Bridge for Youth. This is in, well, let's go to Family Alternatives. That's an even better, that one's a great one. I've got a story there. So Family Alternatives is the agency name. If we move to the right, we see that the agency contact is Mary Lennick. It offers Mary's email contact, and it offers a telephone number to reach Mary. We encourage you to send your resume and a cover letter to Mary if you are interested in this placement, and that you might consider to use the telephone number to follow up after sending the email. You might wait a day or so and follow up and say, I sent my information over. I'm interested in setting up an interview with you. can we do that? And so you have to be a little bit assertive there. Next, you'll see 3 columns. The first is, are there evening hours available? Then, are there weekend hours available? And the third is this a placement that has some financial payment for the student? You'll currently see that Mary has indicated that they are not going to be offering a paid placement. Last week at the Minnesota Social Service Association conference, I spoke with Mary, and by the end of the conversation, Mary informed me that she had secured funding so that this placement will be a paid placement. In the next column, it says that they have 2 openings. There will be 2 paid opportunities for students at this organization. It will soon get updated to indicate that this has been an updated, and it will be yes. Mary has to confirm with her board how she intends to do this. And as soon as that is known to us, we will indicate that for you. Any questions about how to use the agency availability list? Just because you find an organization on your list, it's probably something that you say, well, I don't know what happens at the Family Alternative site. So from here, what you're going to do is you're going to say, I need to cross-reference this Family Alternatives organization with the information that is in the IPT system. And there you'll have an opportunity to see all of the unique expectations and opportunities of participating in an internship with Family Alternatives will look like. You will see whether it requires you to have a vehicle, whether or not travel with job responsibilities will allow you to be reimbursed for your travel time. You will see if there are any elements of prior knowledge that you might need to have. And they will give you some information about the specific types of work that you can be expected to do. It talks about supervision that's available. They talk about what kind of opportunities for, will you have a desk? Will you have an office? Will you have to share space as an intern? What will that look like? And all of that information is available in IPT under the agency profile of whichever of these organizations look interesting to you. It's important for you to note that if you just avoid the agency availability list and you go into IPT and you look at all of the agencies that are listed there, you will find that there are many agencies that are not on the 24-25 availability list. The reason for this is that if a student is currently in that placement and the organization has told us we are not going to take a student next year, we cannot close them out of IPT until that student is done with their placement. So we can't make them inactive so that they're not on the list for you while another student is in that placement setting. So it is really important that your first stop is the agency availability list. And as we said, as organizations continue to tell us that they want to participate in round 1 of interviewing, we will add them to this list. All right, I am going to stop sharing so I can go back into our slide deck here. All right, so we have looked at the agency availability list, and you might have some questions about this list. Some of them are here, and I'm going to walk through them as possible things that will help us to clarify some expectations. If you are a first-year student and you have lots of experience, the question might be, can I interview for a specialization placement? The most obvious answer is no. The final answer is no. And the rationale is that our accrediting body requires that if you are a foundation level student, you need to do a foundation level placement. There are so many of them, and they're all different. And if you're somebody with lots of experience in a particular area of social work, find a placement that is in a setting that you don't have experience or knowledge, so that you can try something new and that it's not just a repeat of what you have previously done. You do need to do a foundation placement if you are a full program first-year student. If you are an advanced standing student and you have selected a specialization, for example, clinical mental health, the question might be, I'm really interested in one of these community practice sites. Could I do my internship there? The answer is unfortunately no. You need to do a placement where the clinical mental health expectations are present in the work that you're going to do. Rosetta.
I just want to add to what Heidi's saying, that is absolutely true. And what I wanted to say that if a person did have this question and you're clinical mental health, but you're interested in community practice, what you could do is when you're looking at the clinical mental health list and you find agencies that's of interest to you, when you go to IPT, every now and then you may find that that agency has also indicated that there is some community practice involved at that agency. And so then that could be your opportunity to get a taste of community practice, but still get your clinical mental health.
That's true. Absolutely. Many organizations offer multiple types of social work practice. The next question says, is it possible to do all of my hours in the evening or weekend? And can I secure that? Well, a lot of the work that you're going to do at your placement initially is going to be done in observation and being observed with your practicum instructor or task supervisor. Most of them work business hours, traditional business hours. And so if you are in a position that you really need to do a majority of your work on the evenings or the weekends, there are a few of those sites, but they are really specific. And I will say that there probably is not a single placement that it is exclusively evenings and weekends. If you don't have a car, what do you do? Probably the first thing is not to panic. Many of our organizations are on the bus lines. Many of our organizations might be in your neighborhood or within a short distance of where you might reside or where you might have a friend. So if you are somebody who does not drive and you need to get somewhere, talk with us and we can help you to brainstorm things that you might do or placements that you might consider that are a little bit closer to your home community. Other questions? This is an important one to think about. Can you do both of your placements at the same agency? Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the time, we want you to have experiences with different people in different organizations. If the opportunity exists for you to have a completely different experience at the same agency, we will consider it. So, for example, if you do a foundation placement with foster care licensing at Ramsey County, and you want to stay at Ramsey County but do child protection investigations, that is a different enough placement for you to do 2 placements with Ramsey County. If you want to do a placement at an elementary school and do another placement at a high school within Minneapolis Public Schools, that can be done. If you want to do something with oncology at Fairview Hospital, and then you want to do inpatient mental health as a secondary placement, that is possible because it's a big enough organization where you can select 2 options that that same organization may have on their list. It is not possible to do your placement at the same location that you did a prior practicum, maybe at your BSW or in any other setting. We want you to have a new experience and to get the most opportunity to network as a social worker. So we will not approve a placement if you've already done one there. And you may not do a placement where you have a friend or relative that also works at the organization and you may be interacting with or be supervised by or be on the same team with. We encourage you not to launch yourself into that or to hide that you know those people. It eventually comes out and it can be really an unfortunate situation for you. Finally, the last question on here is, how do you know if a placement includes a stipend or pay? And probably the best is for you to ask. We have organizations like the Family Alternatives that right now the list says no, but they're working to have it in place and they haven't told us yes yet because it's not for sure, but we know that it's going to happen. And so until we have it secure, we're going to tell you it's not. Yet when you go to interview, they might have updated information. So please ask. I'm going to talk briefly about this stipend and paid placements. Some organizations are going to offer you a stipend, and we have seen stipends range from hundreds of dollars to thousands of dollars. We see that stipends sometimes are paid when you're done with the placement. And we've seen stipends that have been paid at reoccurring intervals, maybe half of it at the end of the fall semester and the other half at the end of the spring semester. Sometimes organizations will take the stipend and divide it into the number of weeks that you will be at the organization and pay you consistently, similar to what their payroll schedule is. Some organizations are going to offer to pay you on a regular or hourly schedule. We have multiple placements where this is a possibility. We're seeing hourly rates fluctuate significantly, so it's important that you think about and ask about what is their hourly pay. Also, in receiving money for your internship, I want you to think about how will this money be taxed? And will you be an employee who has to pay Minnesota or federal taxes on the income? Or is this a gift that is being given to you in its entirety when you're done with the organization's internship? And gifts can be taxable as well, but declaring that as income is between you and your accountant or your banker. Finally, I want to acknowledge that some of our placements, when you are matched, will make you eligible for some scholarship funding. Now, I put the caveat that when you are matched, we know that we have scholarship funds available for specific work types. So one example is that we have a funder who will annually provide a scholarship to a student who secures a placement in oncology, someone who's interested in pursuing work with individuals who are interfacing with cancer. It's actually a physician who specializes in cancer. His wife is a social worker, and they have committed to saying there's a real need for social workers who want to learn to be good oncology social workers. And so they've created a scholarship specifically for that. It will only get assigned or given, distributed to a student who qualifies for the scholarship by having a placement in oncology. You can't get this scholarship if you're going to work in a different part of the hospital. You have to be working in oncology. There are similar scholarships available when working with veterans, with working with traumatic brain injuries, with working with immigrant and refugee populations. And I would love to tell you that I have a list. However, that list is not yet available because the university collects these scholarship funds, and some of them are distributed and some of them are accruing interest so that they can build to a level where they can adequately support a student, and or some years they simply aren't released for distribution. One of the things that we know is that our school last academic year was able to distribute more than $770,000 to our students in scholarships, grants, and child welfare funding. That's a lot of money. We know that this year, our number has been forecasted to be between $1 and $1.2 million. I tell you, there's not a better time to be a student at the University of Minnesota School of Social Work if you are in need of scholarship funding. We hope to fund many, many students this year. The last thing that I want to say about stipends and paid placements are that agencies are not allowed to pay you based on the work that you do at their internship. Specifically, some organizations have a history of making arrangements where if you see a client and they can bill the insurance of that client and bring in money to their organization, they basically have been saying, we're going to cut you a deal. We're going to give you this amount of every dollar that you bring into our organization. We refer to that as a production-based contract. Currently, our general counsel at the University of Minnesota, our legal team, says that we are not allowed to enter into any agreements placing a student in a position to be in a production-based internship. So, as you go out and look for an internship, if you find that an organization is saying, we want to create a production-based contract with you, please let me know, and I will work with the organization in order to transform that into either a stipend or hourly schedule. And the rationale for the university's decision here is that when you are on a production-based contract, and you will have plenty of time in your future to be on a production-based contract, it's really about labor, and it is not about learning. And the university has said, by error and learning to protect our students, to protect the clients of the organizations, it's really important that we focus on your learning and not on you rushing or trying to speed up your learning experience in order to meet the demands and the needs of the organization. There is a real shortage of employees and social workers. Honestly, we can't get you through the program fast enough in order for you to take a position with an organization where you can begin to do production-based and earn as much money as you want. While you're a student, we want you to focus on your learning. We want you to focus on doing this practicum at your pace, where you learn really good habits, and that you are not in a position in which being paid for taking on too much work is the process of what you're doing. It's exploitative. It is a really negative fallout of some of the trends in practicum payment at this time. And so we are working really hard to ensure that you have income with as many organizations as possible without being exploited in the process. And I'm going to move on from there. But if you have further questions on that, let us know. I'm watching the time and I'm recognizing that we are going to be on step 3, and Jade's got a question. Jade, the floor is yours.
Regarding if we are interviewing with a place and they make the offer of a production-based income, how do you suggest we go about that in the interview?
Wonderful, wonderful question. If that were to happen, I would say that you can do a bunch of things. You can just simply listen, and at a neutral time, say that it's our understanding, your understanding, that a production-based contract is not allowed by your school, and that you want that person that's telling you that to make contact with me. You might not feel empowered to say that to them, and you might say, that sounds wonderful. I'm going to need to check with my school about this possibility, and come back and talk with me about it. You can be as assertive with that process as possible. I'm not looking to get out of work, but I will tell you that we are very actively engaged with anyone who is planning to offer an internship for our students for next year, that they know that production-based contracts are not going to be allowed by our school. And I will tell you that I don't know of a school in the Twin Cities where that is going to be a possibility in the next year. We are all very committed to ensuring that you are not exploited by the organization. So we hope that they know that in advance, but it certainly is possible that somebody's going to slip through the cracks and say something like that. So thinking about step 3, going back and looking at the agency description, if you have accepted your admission to our program, you have a profile in our IPT system. There's a shortcut to getting to IPT. I've listed it here. It's simply runipt.com. You'll need to know the school's identification. You'll also need to remember your unique provider or user name and a password that you have chosen. I've talked about why there are agencies that are on IPT and not on the availability list. So I am going to move to this special circumstance. Each of these will bring a unique thing to consider. If you're a 4E scholar, we've talked about that. There are specific placements that you are allowed to do. If you want to do a placement at your place of employment, that is possible, and I'm going to talk about that. If you are hoping to do your practicum at an agency that is not on the availability list and not on IPT, we have an application to help you to begin the process of setting that one up. And all of the policies, the applications, and the practices are written about in the Practicum manual, and you can read about it on your own. Or you can come and talk to me, send me an email, etc. If it is your intent to do one of these unique scenarios, such as an application for place of employment or establishing a new organization relationship with our school, there's a deadline of Friday, April 19th to get the application in to me so that I can investigate and vet that organization and give you a response in time for you to be able to stop interviewing or continue to interview with other alternatives if we don't think it's going to work out. It's really important that you know that during round 1, the April 19th deadline is very clear. If you submit the application after April 19th, I cannot guarantee that I will have sufficient time to vet that organization in order for you to be considered for that placement in the round 1 process. If it's something that you want to do, you do not have to wait until April 19th to submit that application. You are welcome to start working on that now. Step 4, there is an event on April 3rd that we call the Virtual Practicum Agency Information Day. It's an acronym for the word paid. It's kind of a funny, it's kind of a reality. We are trying really hard to get more and more and more of our organizations to be in a position to offer our students some type of income for the work that they are engaged in. And so we renamed, it used to be called a field fair, and we've renamed it, 1, to integrate the word practicum, and 2, to be kind of influential that we're talking about getting students paid. So the paid event, to access the paid event, you will need a URL. You'll basically need a web page. You'll need an address. This goes live on, and the ... goes live on Wednesday. This week, Wednesday, you will get an email from Rosetta before Wednesday indicating that this is where you go on Wednesday to see which organizations are participating in the paid event. You want to see what that particular organization has posted regarding additional materials about their organization. And you will see on that page the format, video platform that the organization chooses to do an open drop-in virtual space where you can come in and out of these virtual spaces and ask questions, listen to other people ask questions, hear about the supervision, hear about the uniqueness of the organizations, maybe even set up an interview with the organization if you feel excited to do so. You might need to upload your job description, or that's not what I meant. You will need to update your resume, or you'll
Heidi, I believe you're muted now. I think you might have muted yourself, Heidi.
Can you not hear me?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, sorry about that. I just received a note that said my connection may be unstable. Please let me know if you can't hear me. Thank you. You may be able to email your resume and cover letter to the organization in the moment and set up an interview. All kinds of great things happen at paid. Probably my favorite is it's an incredibly great place to network. It's a great place to make a good first impression. Bring your excitement, bring your curiosity. Know that the paid event is not your interview. Interviewing can't happen until the day after. And so if you like the organization and they like you, don't consider it done. Schedule an interview and go to the organization and check it out. They might offer you a virtual interview as well. Know that that is possible. Step 5, interviewing. You're allowed to interview from April 4 to May 3. There are 5 MSW programs participating in the interview process at the same time with many of the same organizations. You need to be patient yet persistent in your interaction with the organization. We tell you, please don't be too patient and please don't be a pest. Don't be too persistent. Don't chase them, hound them, don't call them every day, don't email them every day, but find a balance in that. Know that we have asked every organization to respond to the applications that they receive and to screen them. If you're not going to offer an interview, we've asked them to reach out to you and to tell you that. They might say by week 3, we have been flooded with applicants and resumes, and we are no longer accepting resumes. We've got too many already. Don't be too patient and get your stuff out as quickly as you can. If you live out of town and you're not able to do in-person interviews, ask to do a virtual interview with them. Most of the organizations are okay with that. We've talked about a resume and cover letter. It's important that it's updated. And as you think about the first statement of what you are doing, you are seeking not employment, but you are seeking an internship, a practicum opportunity in which you can learn. It's important that it says that on your resume. The cover letter needs to be individualized for each organization that you are sending your resume to. In your cover letter, you should explain to the organization that you are interested in coming to learn from them, that you have done some research about their organization, about their staff, about their clients, whatever you could read or learn about them, and you're interested in coming to them. If they ask you in an interview, or all you say on your cover letter is that you're interested in them and they were on the list from which you could choose, you likely will not get an interview with them. They prefer to know that you have a reason why they should invest in you and you want to invest in them. The last point on here is that practicum interviewing and job interviewing have some similarities, and they also are very different. Here's my take on this. A job interview, you meet the job requirements. You have the training, the knowledge, the skills, and you're going to try to tell the organization that you are somebody who can come in and do this work. You're trained to do it. In a practicum interview, you want to convey to them that you are curious, that you are interested in the work that they do, that you want to learn from them. You want them to give you the training doing this work so that later you can get a job knowing how to do this work. It is really important that you do not go into a practicum interview telling them simply how smart you are, how skilled you are, how capable you are. They won't prioritize you. It's kind of a unwritten element that we want you to be really clear. They are looking for somebody that they can train. They're looking for somebody who wants to learn how to do the work. So, how many interviews should you do? You can do as many as you want. However, we encourage that in the end, you have at least 3 to 4 agencies that you feel you had a really good interview and you would be happy to go to that organization and do your learning. You might be able to do 4 or 5 interviews and say, I liked them all. I would do any of these. You also might do these interviews and you might say, I had a really bad experience there. I didn't connect with that person. I didn't like the way that they talk about their clients. I got a really uncomfortable experience in this. If those cues are going off for you, don't count that as one of your agencies that you want us to know that you interviewed with them. Just don't talk about it anymore. Nobody needs to know that you had that horrible experience. I would like to know, but do not prioritize that as one of your top 3 to 4 placements. So if you do 15 interviews, know that you've probably done too many, and it has probably prevented the organization from interviewing someone else. If you don't interview with 4 to 5, and you go to 1, and it's magnificent, and the organization says to you, oh my goodness, you are the best. We are going to offer you a placement and we want you so badly that we're going to tell you right now. You write down our name and we'll write down your name and we'll be a match. Let me tell you, they're going to say that to more than one person. And even though they sound so sincere with you, the next person that comes in for an interview, they might say the same thing to them. So many students tell us, I only did 1 interview because the agency said that they were going to choose me. And they didn't get chosen. We train the organizations, please do not do this. We train our students, please do not agree to match during an interview. And it still happens and students still get disappointed. Or agencies become disappointed because you might have said, I'm leaning that this is my first choice. And they say, well, we can stop interviewing because we've got a first choice. And then you go to another organization and you're like, whoa, this one was really even better. Now this is my first choice. Don't talk about ranking with the organizations during the interview. Go in, learn about them, get a good sense about what they're going to offer. Ask them lots of questions about the internship. Remember that they are interviewing you, but you are interviewing them as well. So come with questions. Be sure that you have some questions written down before you go there. Make sure that you have a list of about 3 to 4 agencies that you're going to tell us, I would go to any of these organizations. You're going to tell us on May 6th in IPT, you are going to make a list of these 3 to 4 agencies that you would want to go to. The process to this is going to come to you in an email correspondence from Rosetta, but the long and short of it is you're going to log into IPT, go to the agency description tab, find the agency that you really liked, And at the bottom of that page, you're going to click a little button that says add to my agency choice list. And you're going to do that for every organization that you want on your list. Once you have them all added, you can go into your personal IPT profile page and change their order, delete them, go and add some more. You need to have your preferences listed and finalized at 5 o'clock on May 6th. Rosetta will lock the system at 5 o'clock on May 6th. And if you do not have your choices there, you will not get placed in round 1. Please don't rank any organizations that you have second thoughts about or that you say, I don't want to go there. If it is your 4th choice, be sure that you like it enough to have it on the list, or don't list it. Okay? Step 7, May 17th, 12 o'clock, you can log into IPT and you will learn if you have matched in round 1 and who this organization is that you have matched with. You might also get notified that you did not match with an organization. If, in fact, you are notified that you did not match in round 1, we want you to take a really deep breath and know that you're not done. You will need to participate in round 2 in order to secure a placement for the 24-25 school year. Round 2 begins May 24th and it continues until July 31. You have to have a placement confirmed with me by July 31 in order to participate in the fall 24, spring 25 school year. Last point on here is simply to say that I and our team will be available to provide you support. I do weekly Zoom supervision throughout round 2. If you want a placement for the fall spring, please stay in contact with me. Please stay actively informing me of what's going on with your process, and I will assist you to secure a placement so you can do your internship in the fall. If you disappear, if you stop communication, if you don't secure a placement by July 31st, we will not register you for a placement or in our practicum for the school year. You will then need to wait until another opportunity, such as summer placement of 2025, before you can secure a placement. July 31st is the deadline. Almost the final of this is that step 8 is to contact the agency. When you have a match on May 17th and you see that you have secured a placement, we want you to initiate calling the organization. We have already told them that you are the person that they are matched with. Confirm that you will be coming to their organization. Be appreciative, say thank you, whatever you feel moved to do at that time, but begin to make a plan to meet and talk about starting. When are you going to do orientation? What does training look like? Ask your questions. Do you have any questions for me? Bridget.
Hi, Heidi. Thank you so much for all this information. Towards the very earlier on in the presentation, there was a part that talked about first come, first servedness, and I think it was related to these steps in the practicum that you just reviewed. Which step is that, like, specifically? Is it like if you get your interviews done, you lock and load them in like way before May 6th, or is May 6th kind of like a time for, it doesn't really matter before May 6th, you choosing them? Just trying to get, I
Yeah.
don't think I took it in the first time when you said it.
Okay, sure. So you're gonna get your match. The May 6th is nothing about first come, first serve. Follow the schedule, get your interviews done. Think about and reflect upon what and where you want to do your internship, right? That's all done.
You doing?
Then,
Marcus, come plug that in again.
Rosetta, I'm muting you. Then, be on the watch for the email from Rosetta. And Rosetta is talking about which seminar do you want to attend? Do you want to be in a Monday night seminar, a Tuesday evening seminar, a Friday midday seminar? Which seminar works best with your schedule? Based on placement, based on when you're in classes, based on how many times you have to come to campus, based on how many times you have to pay for parking, based on what works best in your life, respond to the email about which seminar is your first choice, which is your second choice. The earlier that you do that, the more likely you will get into the placement that you choose. Into the seminar that you choose.
Great, thank you for that.
Yep. Other questions?
Heidi, I have a question.
Sure.
Thank you so much for all the information. So, say for example, you get into the practicum that you choose, and for some reason it doesn't work out, and you're not like enjoying it, and it's not like benefiting you, for example.
Mhm.
What would you do then, going forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and something that happens. There are policies and procedures to end a placement. There are policies and procedures about switching placements. I would say that it is rare that it happens. And simply getting a bad feeling about a placement is not necessarily reason to leave the placement, but it might be something that you are in conversation with your practicum coordinator about. And, you know, if you're feeling, so sometimes there's placements that disrupt, because the student stops showing up, or placements disrupt because the organization loses funding. Sometimes the placement disrupts because you are dropping out of school. There's all kinds of reasons. One of the things that we know is that there are 5 stages to a successful internship. And the first one is all about being in anticipation of, this is really exciting. I'm super stoked to go to this organization. I'm going to get to work with this population. I'm going to get to do all this wonderful stuff. And stage 2 is that I get there and I begin to see that the supervisor and this work is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And we refer to that stage as disillusionment. And it is real. It is so real. One of my favorite examples, there was a student who was super excited to do their internship, secured a placement with a housing organization, And her life's work in her mind was to end homelessness. And she thought she was going to be able to really make a difference. And she got into her placement and she learned about all the reasons why people are not housed. And she learned about unlawful detainers, and she learned about housing court, and she learned about how some people prefer to live on the street and some people don't want to be housed. And she came back into seminar talking about this, and she was so defeated and just couldn't believe how difficult housing was. And she was ready to quit school. She thought this was just the worst thing. Her disillusionment was real. And it's often more than, I just got a bad feeling. I don't really want to be here. This isn't meeting my needs. There's something happening, and we like to look at what might that be and how do we address it and what is possible to fix. So there's a whole process that we use in order to work through what is possible as far as saving a placement. And when that's not possible, we have some procedures to end a placement. Students are sometimes let go from a placement because they have done something that the organization says this is too big to forgive or to work through. And sometimes students feel the same way. I can't go back there. I'm not going to go back there. In those instances, it is possible to terminate the placement. We cannot guarantee that you are going to get another placement quickly or even in the same sequence of internship period. And depending upon if it is at the beginning or at the end of a semester, if it is at the beginning of an internship or at the end of an internship when it disrupts, if it disrupts and you had cause for this disruption, or you had no cause, wasn't your fault, all of those things are taken into consideration. So we address all of those situations and scenarios in the Practicum manual. I would say take a look at it if you're really worried about it. And also know that your Practicum coordinator is going to walk you through every single one of those scenarios. Other questions? If you feel like you have all of the answers that you might attain this evening, please feel free to sign off. We will include this recording on the IPT homepage, on the Practicum incoming student page, and you'll find this recording on Canvas. And I know some of the incoming students are not yet on Canvas, but you will soon have access to Canvas, and you'll find the recording there as well. I'll stay on for a minute and see if anybody has any other questions. I am going to stop the recording.